Dealing with erosion and stormwater runoff are increasingly important issues as they affect our water supply. Today we look at some very creative and innovative solutions to these problems, as well as gardening in challenging situations. Stay tuned as we garden smart from Ohio.
DRAM is celebrating 75 years of design and manufacturing of quality watering tools. DRAM products feature 9 water patterns and are designed to nurture your plants with a shower of rain. DRAM for lawn and garden, available at garden centers near you.
Bring the outdoors into your everyday life. Bass Pro Shops can outfit all your adventures, even those in your backyard. Bass Pro Shops, your adventure starts here.
Cleaning our air, offering cool shade and beauty. Trees work hard in your yard and deserve your care. Bayer Advanced, makers of products designed to revitalize and protect. Get more from the blue bottle.
Hey there, little Red Riding Hood. You sure are looking good.
When we visit a new city, we're always looking for great gardens, the kind of beautiful gardens that are educational, not only for us, but for our viewers. One of the ways that we do that is by interacting with gardeners and horticulturalists across the U.S., finding out the gardens that they love and they think we should visit. Today we have the pleasure of rejoining Rob McCartney. And Rob, you were our guest host in Michigan at Meyer Garden and did a wonderful job. Your credentials are quite impressive. So good to have you back on the show.
Thanks. Good to be here, and welcome to Cleveland.
Thank you so much. Rob, if you would start off by telling us about yourself as a horticulturalist.
Well, I'm born and raised here in the great Buckeye State. Made my way to Ohio State, where I have both a bachelor's and a master's degree in horticulture.
Wonderful. Now, you've had a pretty long career in the industry and some pretty cool jobs along the way.
I have. I'm very fortunate to work at SeaWorld of Ohio for 10 years. And it was there at SeaWorld that I discovered the value of creating a theme of the collection and selection of plants.
So from SeaWorld, you went to a site that was quite a bit different in Meyer Gardens.
Exactly. Like SeaWorld, the main thrust of why everybody came wasn't necessarily the plants. But once they came to the site to see either the shows at SeaWorld or the art at Meyer Gardens, we completed the experience with a nice landscape.
So today you find yourself at the Cleveland Zoo, and in many ways, I guess that's going back to your roots or similar to your experience at SeaWorld. Tell us about the zoo.
Well, the zoo, I think, is a treasure. I really do. I've known about it for years, and to come back here after almost 10 years of being gone from Ohio, it's refreshing. And I think what we have here is a treasure that has to be refined and revealed. And like my other jobs, the main attraction, what brings all these people in, isn't the gardens. It's the animals, and that's great. And as good as these animals are, without the surrounding ambiance of the trees and the shrubs and the lawn and the flowers, it just wouldn't have the impact. So I think landscape really completes the scene, really completes the experience for our guests.
You guys have done a great job capturing that. Behind us, you've got your new African elephant exhibit, and it looks like the Sahara. It's absolutely beautiful. And I can only imagine, Rob, that the challenges you have with elephants that weigh thousands of pounds is quite a bit different than the challenges you'd have with people stopping by to look at art.
Yeah, it really is. And I think one of the things we struggle with is soil compaction. And when you get that compaction, you get surface runoff. And the surface runoff water is evident in a lot of these areas, especially because it's a new exhibit and things haven't established. I wasn't here, I think, more than 30 days and realized I needed to talk to an agronomist. Many years ago, I worked with an agronomist by the name of Rod Tyler. He was at Ohio State with me, and he was helpful with me at SeaWorld. and he came out and he gave me some good ideas of how we can start controlling surface runoff.
Well, Rob, we're really, really excited at looking for solutions for water control and also for erosion control. And I know there's some great new ideas out there.
It's great.
Unfortunately, today we don't have time to see the zoo, but we're going to come back in a few months after you've worked your magic. Can't wait to see it.
Please do. Enjoy Cleveland while you're here, but come on back to the zoo.
We'll do it, Rob.
Thank you.
I'm joined here today by Rod Tyler, who's the owner of Grafton Nurseries. And Rod, we've heard an awful lot about you. If you would, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, graduated from Ohio State with a degree in agronomy, looking at ways I can use that, and ended up writing a book in 1996 about using compost. And as this nursery transcended out of the Taxus and Arborvitae days to more modern things like looking at water pollution control, we've done a tremendous amount of research here.
Very interesting. You definitely have been at the forefront of wastewater runoff, erosion control. Talk to us about that.
Well, my first book talked about writing and using compost, but we've actually started using compost for not in your lawn and garden areas, but for filtering stormwater. And filtering stormwater means that we can take care of a lot of the pollutants that are out there. And we use a lot of different applications here, but we've actually about 70 different stations for doing the testing.
Now, Grafton Nursery is still a production nursery, but it, of course, has evolved into something much more today.
Yeah, we've evolved into things like rain gardens and CSAs and other home garden kits that people can use compost as an everyday growing medium.
Some of the most common questions that we get from our viewers are about erosion control, sustainable vegetable gardening, and I know you've got a lot of wonderful examples for us today. Let's dive in.
Let's do it.
Rod, you had mentioned that composting has been something that's been a passion of yours for your entire professional career. And of course, there's nothing better to grow our plants in than compost. But for many people, they may be confused about what is compost, how do I make it, how do I use it? So let's start from the very beginning. What is compost?
Well, compost is just a mixture of all organic materials. In front of me, you can see we have a pile of weeds and grass clippings and twigs. And this typically will turn into something like this in about 6 months. What's behind me is a commercial pile that has been delivered from a city. There's about 4,000 of these across the U.S. And make no mistake about it, if you do composting right, you actually generate heat, which kills weed seeds.
Interesting. So is there anything we need to keep in mind from a standpoint of the balance of brown material to green material in our compost?
Yeah, typically a homeowner wants to put about 1/3 of their pile as green materials. That includes grass clippings, some homeowners can do food waste, etc., and 2 parts brown stuff. Wood chips, leaves and twigs, things that are older and brown, make a nice bulking agent.
Right, it's the nitrogen in the green material that helps accelerate the decomposition process. And as you mentioned, it gets quite hot. It's very important to kill the weed seed. And that's all part of just the normal physiological process of decomposition as it's being converted from, this hard and leafy material into this very, very rich soil.
Absolutely, it's just a natural process. All of the organisms that are doing the work and creating the heat are all what you find in natural soils. And they're always on the ground, they're in the plant materials that you collect.
Yeah, so this is a very, very practical thing to do at home. Is there anything we ought to know about the actual compost bin?
The bins should be made out of wood. Usually about a 3x3 size is a good size. You could use regular pallets. I would not use any treated wood on those. And there's a ton of options at the garden centers or at other stores.
Well, that's great information. It is, of course, a very practical thing to do, a very easy thing to do. And I'm looking forward to going home and making some compost.
Great.
Compost has been used for a long, long time in farming and in gardening applications. And for most folks, it's a matter of just spreading it out, either tilling it in or leaving it as a top dress in an effort to increase the organic matter in the soil. But you guys have taken it quantum leaps forward by researching specific ways of using it. And you've really opened up a new world of how compost can be used. I want you to talk about your research.
Well, when we started using compost for all of the common applications that you mentioned, we had a lot of engineers asking if we could harness those properties somehow to filter water for stormwater applications. And the answer is yes. They pushed us to come up with mesh products like this that actually contain the compost. And then we actually came up with about 100 different types because we have to make sure that we have the mesh designed for the right application. Some products have longer shelf lives than others. They degrade in the sun, some do not. Some are biodegradable, some are not. So we've actually engineered over 100 different types for that.
Wow. And so talk me through the process of getting the compost into this guy.
Well, this is really simple. This is just a mesh tube. The commercial device behind us just recently made 8,000 socks for a 500 Gardens in a Day program that we do. This is a common piece of equipment that's available at our manufacturing locations that we've set up across the country. There's other equipment that we use that is for larger homeowners that are more serious about it. And then finally, we have a smaller unit here that's basically just if somebody wants to goof around and try it, it's very, very simple. You just simply dump the compost in, you tap it on a table a couple times or on a concrete, you pull the sock up, and then you put a zip tie in each end.
Right, I know you also have many different grades of compost that can go into the sock, and I guess that greatly widens the types of applications they can be used for.
Yeah, we have a whole set of specifications we've developed based on what these engineers want. So if they want something that lets water move through the sock very fast, it's a fairly coarse product. If they want something to dam water up, it's a fairly fine product.
You've got a great visual example for us here of some plants that are loving growing in this compost.
Yeah, basically this is a sock that's with a big enough mesh to allow the grass that's pre-seeded inside of it to grow out. So you make up the mix, you put it in the sock, it grows out, the tops grow out and the roots go down and anchor into the substrate.
Very interesting. I can imagine this would be super effective at reclaiming a very challenging site. And you can see, in a very short period of time, the roots have emerged through it, lashed into the native soil, and this would be a great way of basically getting plants to grow in places that they don't ordinarily want to grow.
Absolutely.
Rod, this is one of thousands of possible applications of this product, and I know you've got many, many other examples to show us. Let's go see what it can do.
One of our oldest applications is stormwater filtering, and we would put a sock here in this depression. There's a farm runoff next door that has nutrients in it. There's a development right up this slope that has potentially sediment in it. And one of the things that this sock will do is allow the water to pass through and pull out the nutrients in the sediment. And as you can see, we already have a good example of eutrophication started with an algal bloom behind us.
So in most applications like this, folks would use a silt fence, which it does strain a lot of the silt out, but why would you recommend against that?
Well, first of all, a silt fence is meant to capture sediment, and it doesn't really do anything for nutrients. So that's kind of where the technologies differ. The future of clean water is going to have to be a filter like you use for car filters or like you use for pool filters, things that are designed to take out the stormwater pollutants.
One problem with silt fences also is that it's a woven fabric, and as soon as the pores basically get plugged up, the water has nowhere to go but over the fence. And typically what happens is the fences fail, they flop over, and then all that ends up in the waterway that we were initially trying to protect. Whereas with this product, it's moving through an organic substrate. So basically any of the nitrogens, phosphorus, potassium, whatever's coming off of especially agricultural runoff, lawn fertilizer, etc., is filtered before it makes it to the waterway. So it's a great solution for these kind of applications.
That's right. And if we decide that we want vegetation in it, like we just saw, you can seed that and put it back here so it blends into the landscape.
I love it. We've seen some examples of how you're able to use the sock inserted with seeds and basically be able to grow grasses or different plants through those. I know you've also been working with different methods of actually installing plants, using them as planters or planter beds. Talk us through the process of putting the plants in the sock.
Well, it's real simple. You just take a knife or a scissors and you cut a hole in a sock that's big enough to fit the plug that you're going to plant. And you just put your fingers in there and make a hole and plant the plug. And the recent garden that we had done, 8 socks, which is about a 4x4 garden, we literally planted the entire thing in less than 5 minutes.
Wow. I love the versatility of this kind of planting. It doesn't matter what your terrain is, how big your site is. You can basically custom tailor a very mobile garden. It's very easy to plant and would only take you a few minutes to install it and then a few more minutes to plant it. So I think it's a wonderful solution for people who may not have an ideal site to install a garden.
Absolutely. One of the experiments that we did for the permaculture community was to do a test of about 65 different plugs in socks that was a question about whether they would grow well. So how do you think they're doing?
Oh, they look like they're doing great. And so I guess the advantage of using the sock in this case is that you've got that nutrition that's centered right around the crown of the plant. Some of these plants are ones that can be pretty difficult to get established, but these are sitting on top of gravel, so the plants have got all that nutrition that's centered right around its base, but then the roots, of course, are deep down in the soil.
Yeah, that answered the question of whether the roots would actually penetrate the sock, and obviously you can tell the answer is yes. This hasn't been irrigated or touched for 3 years.
Wow.
You know, Eric, one of the other things we're doing is integrating our systems with kids for playgrounds for education. And so behind us you see some trellises that'll be planted for green roofs. We have another planter over here so kids can actually get involved. We have an entire kids curricula that's available for anybody that's interested.
A problem that's common to many sites are low areas or bogs that collect water. In some cases in residents, it's just, you know, that area at the end of a downspout that becomes a challenge. Where we have standing water, we've got issues with breeding mosquitoes and also trying to find out, you know, how to reclaim them, how to get plants going. And you guys have done a wonderful job of basically revitalizing this section.
Well, thanks. This used to be one of those areas, used to pond water. Actually, water used to go into the barn here, and so it drains from the parking lot, so there's obviously pollutants and nutrient issues. And we were able to put the socks down and plant a wetland mix in here of a number of different things that have worked very, very well.
So this is basically a rain garden, and as we've talked about before, plants do a wonderful job of removing any kind of heavy nitrates, cleaning the water before it then goes into your drain, and also the root systems of the plants do a really good job of holding the soil in. And you've used the sock to basically establish these plants, right?
Yeah, that's right. And we actually have a giant sponge here that has capacity for great rains and capacity to keep these plants alive as well.
That's great. For more information on plants that thrive in rain gardens, visit our website at GardenSMART.com. To me, I think this is one of the most exciting applications of this product. I love growing vegetables, and vegetable gardening is one of the most popular types of gardening nowadays. And you guys have got some beautiful crops going here. Talk to me about what you're doing.
Well, this is a very intensive system. One thing we're doing is challenging the genetics of the plant with the system, with the substrate, with the soil. And that gives us the ability to cram these plants in here in tighter spacings than is normally recommended. It also gives us opportunities for transition crops. The peas will be done soon, and the squash and the zucchini will climb up the vines and vine up as time goes on. So it gives us a great opportunity for transition. Some of the other benefits we have here are the cultural issues. Is the socks breathe, we talked about that before, and so it's not actually as hot in here as it seems for the plants.
Yeah, and breathability of soil is very, very important, and there's a natural cooling that goes on. It's adiabatic or evaporative cooling, and so as we look at the substrate, it's going to be 70-ish degrees while we're standing at a very comfortable 110-degree greenhouse.
Right.
And of course, heat is the limiting factor of growth in plants, and being able to remove the intense heat from the root systems allows them to thrive. And of course, you've also got drip irrigation integrated. Two of the biggest challenges in any kind of gardening is going to be weeds and water, and especially in vegetable gardening where we're not going to use herbicides. And so the sock does a great job of keeping weed seeds out, and the drip irrigation being inserted right into the sock allows you to control your water.
That's right. You can see this mesh that we've selected for this application doesn't allow weed seeds that blow in to germinate very easily. And so that's why there's no weeds in here. And also the evaporative cooling that you mentioned does mean that we have to slightly adjust our irrigation. Sometimes in the summer we'll go to 2 times a day or 3 times a day, but we actually have great use of the water.
These could also be planted on a patio or in a very, very small area. It's a very versatile system. Even if we don't have a nice greenhouse like this, we could still put these down pretty much anywhere. The greenhouse, in your case, of course, allows you to grow almost year-round. Huge advantage there.
Yeah, absolutely. And you'll also find that some of the stores now carry smaller 8x8 or 10x10 zip-up greenhouses. They're a couple $100. If you want to try this at home in a smaller quantity, it's very, very easy to do.
This is a great display area that I think really shows off the versatility of the product and the many, many different ways that people can use it. And it's, I'm sure, a nice thing to have people be able to stroll through, pick up new ideas.
Yeah, well, this is a display of all these different types of 4x4 gardens that are commonly available. And we filled up one of them here with our socks. It takes 8 socks. And this will produce around 80 pounds of vegetables if it's properly cared for. So what we see is people that want to garden but have a hard time with the rototiller. And so rather than renting one or they don't have a truck, they can get the socks, go back, they can do it on a patio or gravel and be really successful.
That's great. Yeah, this is all just done on top of rocks. You've got some that are very ornamental, others that are more simple. Even some great examples of rooftop gardening, which is, you know, a really, really neat way of using the product. So this is definitely a very educational place. Rob, by now I'm pretty well convinced there's very little you've not tried to do with these socks, and this is a really, really neat feature. You basically have built a raised pond, and you know, for my part, I think a lot of ponds that are installed don't look natural. It's a hole where someone sets a, you know, molded plastic liner and then puts some rocks around it, and it doesn't look like anything you'd see in nature. But of course, you guys have utilized the top edge of this to bring the plants right up to the edge, and it looks like it's been here for a while.
Yeah, well, I don't own a backhoe and didn't want to rent one, and we wanted a all-weather display garden with a pond. The display also has socks that are in the pond with wetland plants established, pickerelweed and arum there on the other side, which are very, very healthy and do a lot to clean the water as well.
That's great. Well, once again, this is a pretty easy feature to install. You've got a couple layers of the socks and then a liner that goes down into the pond and then a capstone layer, if you will, to hold the liner in place. And you've made use of every single square inch of it. We've seen some wonderful examples today of how this can be used for erosion control, also for vegetable gardening, and you've also got a great example of a landscape application.
Yeah, it's very, very simple to line pathways or walkways and have everything in a line. And as a designer, people actually have Crayola crayons. They can mark up anything they want in any landscape they want. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, and of course, you know, these are going to grow in and get nice and thick and beautiful. I could also see this used as a portable or, you know, type of temporary landscaping for special events as well.
Yeah, we've had people use them for golf course events or weddings or anything like that. And actually, the stuff can be then relocated later because it's portable and planted in a permanent location.
That's great. That's great. And then also, I guess when you're done with the socks, they can basically be put right back into the flower bed.
Yeah, every year what we do is we do experiments and we cut these open and put them back into the flower bed for the trees. The trees here are obviously pretty healthy, and even though the compost has been used, it's still great organic matter and still has some good microflora in it.
That's wonderful. We've had an absolutely wonderful day and have learned so much about what I think is a very fascinating product. As we leave our viewers, are there any final words that you'd have for them?
Just don't give up on the spaces that are tough for gardening. Look for new products, try new things, and keep working at it, and you'll find a way to make it work.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Each week we travel the country north to south, east to west, visiting some of the most exciting gardens, as well as talking to industry horticulturalists about design principles, new plants, and also how you can be most successful with your home gardens. We also love answering your gardening questions, so visit us on the web at GardenSMART.com.
DRAM is celebrating 75 years of design and manufacturing of quality watering tools. DRAM products feature 9 water patterns and are designed to nurture your plants with a shower of rain. Dram for lawn and garden, available at garden centers near you.
Bring the outdoors into your everyday life. Bass Pro Shops can outfit all your adventures, even those in your backyard. Bass Pro Shops, your adventure starts here.
Cleaning our air, offering cool shade and beauty. Trees work hard in your yard and deserve your care. Bear Advanced, makers of products designed to revitalize and protect. Get more from the blue bottle.
Hey there, little Red Riding Hood. You sure are looking good.
Today we've seen some creative and innovative ways of dealing with stormwater runoff as well as erosion control, and we've seen how you can garden on practically any surface. If you have questions about anything you've seen today, or for additional video footage, visit us on the web at GardenSMART.com. And remember, even if you're a master gardener, there's always more to learn. So join us next week for more tips and ideas as we garden smart.